Sam vanishes just how Winston expected. During the preparation for Hate Week, the city is filled with propaganda and hate songs were written, and the proles are uncontrollable. The weather was really hot. Winston becomes increasingly obsessed with the room above Mr. Charrington's shop, where he had seen Julia 7 times that month. Winston is troubled by the thought of getting caught and killed due to their affair, which, in case you've forgotten, it is completely illegal. He fantasizes that Catherine will die so he could marry Julia. He even dreams of changing his identity to become a pro. Winston and Julia talk about the brotherhood. Winston talks about the strange kindship he feels with O'Brien. Winston is annoyed by Julia's selfish concern and lack of lofty rebellious goals. Winston scolds her for being a rebel only from the waist down. Chapter 6. O'Brien finally makes contact with Winston, which he had waited all his life. They met at the hallway at the Ministry of Truth, but only a quick meeting. Winston got anxious and excited. O'Brien talks to Winston about the 10th edition of Newspeak Dictionary and tells him that he can take a peek of it if he makes a visit one evening. Winston accepted the offer, but he knows the meeting could somehow lead him to the Ministry of Love, where he expects to be killed. But that didn't stop him from going to O'Brien's house.
Chapter 7 is where Winston wakes up crying in the room at Mr. Charrington's antique shop. Julia's with him, and then she just asks him like, "What's wrong?" And he says that he dreamt of his mother. He dreamt that he murdered his mother because, and then he starts remembering all these past memories about like how his father left and that his mother changed for a bit. She wasn't angry or violent about the fact that her husband left, but he was. I mean, she changed in some ways. She was like spiritless. Then they just spent most of their time in underground shelters hiding from Aryans, and there wasn't enough food and all of that. So one day they had chocolate rations, and his mother was telling him and scolding him to share, and be more considerate of the situation. But he didn't want to. He's like threw a tantrum and all that. So his mom gave him 3/4 of the chocolate and 1/4 to his sister. The sister was holding it, and then he was like, "Ooh." So he took it anyway, and just ran out. He stole the chocolate and ran out, and he ate it, and he felt like guilty about it. But when he came back, his mom and his sister was gone. So yeah, that's about what happened, and he never saw them again. That's when he got sent to I forgot what it's called, but it's basically somewhere where homeless children go. And then Winston talks about how he believes that the Pearls are still human, that they have feelings and all that, because they fight over the littlest things. And party members don't have any of these feelings. They're forced to suppress their own feelings, so they become virtually inhuman. Then Winston and Julia are talking about how they might be captured, how they'll be tortured and killed, and that renting the room was also a problem. So they were just talking about how they will be captured and what the future will be like. And they tell each other that even though they will be tortured and make them confess about their crimes, it won't stop them from loving each other. And so they agree on that. Chapter 8 is where they actually take the risk and go to O'Brien's house. They're shocked by how O'Brien can turn this telescreen off. And yeah, so basically Winston declares that he and Julia are enemies of the party and they want to join the opposing party, which is the Brotherhood. O'Brien tells him that the Brotherhood is real and that Emmanuel Goldstein exists and he's alive. O'Brien gives them wine, and Winston I don't think has ever come across wine because he'd always have like what's it called, Victory Gin, something like that. So O'Brien tells Winston Um, all right, and O'Brien asks Winston and Julia questions about whether just information about them so that they can know what qualities they have. Then Winston gives a copy of Goldstein's book, which is called The Manifesto of the Revolution. And O'Brien tells Winston that they'll meet again one day, but it's in a place where there is no darkness. And O'Brien says, okay, he repeats it. And then there's that song, the St. Clement's Church Rhyme. Winston was, he remembered that and he sang it for a while. And then O'Brien continued the rest. And it turns out that O'Brien knows the last line of that song. So, yeah, as Winston leaves, O'Brien turns the telescreen on and does his party work. That's about it.
Chapter 9. Winston comes home after a long, exhausting week at work. This was because he has been making changes in his work as Oceania switches enemies and allies in their ongoing war, from Eurasia to East Asia. This caused people to feel embarrassed as they carried anti-Eurasia signs instead of East Asia. In the room at Mr. Charrington's, Winston reads about the book given to him by O'Brien called The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism, which had chapter titles like War is Peace and Ignorance is Strength. According to them, Eurasia was created when Russia subsumed all of Europe. Oceania was created when United States absorbed the British Empire, and East Asia is made up of the remaining nations. The war is simply a fact of life that enables the ruling powers to keep the masses of ignorant life in other places, which is the real meaning of the phrase war is peace. While reading, Julia comes in and joins Winston in bed. She asked him to tell her about the book, and they soon fell asleep. Chapter 10. The woman singing outside wakes Julia up. While they both look at the woman outside thinking about the future, they suddenly say, "We are the dead." And a third voice says, "You are the dead." A telescreen was hidden behind the picture of St. Clement's Church. Black-clad troops pours into the room. They get beaten up and restrained when Mr. Charrington comes in. He is actually a member of the Thought Police.